somewhere in a climate-controlled warehouse. A car worth more than a private jet sits under a soft cover, waiting for its next owner to write a check with more zeros than most people see in a lifetime. These aren't just cars. They're rolling pieces of history, engineering, and obsession, built in eras when speed was dangerous and glamour was earned on the racetrack rather than manufactured for social media. Every car on this list represents a moment where two or more of the wealthiest, most competitive people on the planet decided that losing simply wasn't an option. Today, we're counting down the 10 most expensive cars ever sold at auction, and the numbers only get more insane from here. Number 10, 1969, Ford GT40 Mk3, United States, $7.865 million. That's what a collector paid for one of just 10 factory-built examples of the Ford GT40 Mark III, the road-going, civilized cousin of the car that humiliated Ferrari at Le Mans in the 1960s. This particular car never raced. It didn't need to. Its bloodline did all the talking. Every panel, every line, every rumble under the hood traces back to a war fought on French tarmac between Henry Ford II and Enzo Ferrari, a rivalry so bitter it became a Hollywood movie decades later. What made this specific example so valuable wasn't performance. It was purity. The original body, the original chassis, untouched by the decades. In a world of restorations and replicas, originality is its own kind of currency, and buyers were willing to pay nearly $8 million just to own a piece of automotive history exactly as it left the factory floor. Number 9, 1979, Ferrari 312 T4, Italy, $8.245 million for a car that carried a world champion on its back. This is the Formula One machine Jody Scheckter drove to his 1979 World Championship, the last title Ferrari would win as a constructor for an entire generation. Even with a restoration that shows its age, and even though the final price landed well below its $16 to $20 million estimate, buyers wanted the story more than they wanted perfection. There's something almost sacred about a car that once carried a driver to the absolute peak of the sport. You're not just buying carbon and steel. You're buying the exact machine that turned a man into a legend, scars and all. Number 8, 1955, Ferrari 355 MM, Berlinetta, $9.465 million. Only 22 of these were ever built, and just 4 were road-going versions sold to private clients rather than professional racing teams. This particular car passed through only 3 owners in its entire 70-year life, an almost unheard-of chain of custody in a world where cars this valuable tend to change hands every few years as fortunes rise and fall. It sat in one collection for over 5 decades, quietly appreciating, quietly waiting, while the market around it exploded into the tens of millions. When it finally came up for sale, collectors weren't just bidding on a car, they were bidding on the rare chance to become only the 4th name in its history. Number 7, 2006, Pagani Zonda Riviera, Italy, $10.13 million, and this one isn't even old by classic car standards. Horacio Pagani's cars have never been cheap, but this Zonda F went a step further. It was reborn through Pagani's in-house Unico restoration program, stripped down and rebuilt to a specification that never existed on any factory line. Pearl white paint, deep blue accents, carbon fiber woven throughout the cabin, and an interior wrapped in dark blue Alcantara that looks more like a couture gown than car upholstery. This sale proved something important about the modern collector market. Rarity beats age every single time. You don't need a car to be 70 years old to be worth $10 million. You just need it to be one of one. Number 6, 1960 Ferrari 250 GT SWB California Spider, Italy. $17 million for the very first California Spider ever built. It debuted at the Geneva Motor Show in 1960, turning heads before it ever touched public roads, and remarkably, it had never once been offered for public sale until this auction. Decades of private ownership meant this car had essentially been hiding in plain sight, known to insiders but invisible to the broader market. A competition spec engine and a removable hardtop made it even more desirable to the collector who finally took it home, because this wasn't just a beautiful convertible built for Sunday drives along the California coast. It was a genuine dual-purpose machine, equally at home on a racetrack or in front of a five-star hotel. Number 5, 1963 Ferrari 250 GT SWB California Spider, Italy, $17.875 million. This is the very last California Spider ever produced, and remarkably, it beat its own older sibling to the top of this list by nearly $1 million. Think about that for a second. 2 bookends of the exact same legendary production run, the very first and the very last car built, both surfacing at auction and both landing among the 10 most expensive cars in history, sold decades apart to completely different buyers who likely never knew the other existed. It's the kind of symmetry that only happens in the automotive world, where the first and last of anything carries a weight that the 90 cars in between simply never will. Number 4, 1957 Ferrari 335 Sport. $35.7 million for a car built purely to win with absolutely nothing else in mind. No comfort, no compromise, no concession to the driver's safety or ease. This was Ferrari at its most ruthless, an era when racing cars were essentially controlled explosions on 4 wheels, driven by men who understood they might not walk away. Buyers competing for this car in the auction room weren't paying for a smooth ride or a comfortable seat. They were paying for the danger it once represented, for the raw, uncompromising engineering of a machine designed for one purpose: crossing the finish line first, whatever the cost. Number 3, 1964 Ferrari 250 LM, Italy, $36.3 million. And this one has the resume to match every dollar of that price tag. It won the 1965 Le Mans 24 Hours outright, one of the most grueling endurance races on the planet, driven by Maston Gregory and Jochen Rindt as a privateer entry, rather than an official factory car. To this day, it remains the only privateer Ferrari victory in the history of Le Mans, and remarkably, Ferrari itself wouldn't win there again for decades after that. When this car crossed the finish line in 1965, it didn't just win a race. It closed a chapter of Ferrari's own history that stayed closed until 2023. That kind of significance doesn't fade with time. If anything, it compounds. Number 2, 1962 Ferrari 250 GTO, Italy, a $48.4 million. Say those three letters, GTO, to any serious car collector on Earth and watch their expression change instantly. Fewer than 40 were ever built between 1962 and 1964, and each one that surfaces at auction doesn't just set a new price. It rewrites what people thought a car could possibly be worth. The GTO occupies a strange space in the collector world, somewhere between vehicle and mythology. Owning one isn't really about driving it. It's about holding a piece of the single most coveted name in automotive history, a name so powerful that even Ferrari itself has struggled to recreate the magic with any car since. Number 1. 1954. Mercedes-Benz Traumlinienwagen, Germany, $53.9 million. The most expensive car ever sold at public auction and the most expensive Formula One car in the history of the sport. This streamlined silver missile was built for speed in its purest, most terrifying form, raced by two of the greatest drivers who ever lived, Juan Manuel Fangio and Sterling Moss, men whose names still open conversations about who the greatest driver of all time really was. It sold directly from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum, the very institution that had preserved it for decades, protecting it from a market that only grew hungrier with every passing year. When the hammer finally fell at $53.9 million, it didn't just set a record. It redefined, in a single moment, exactly what a piece of automotive history could be worth to the right person with the right amount of money and the right amount of desire. 10 cars, over $300 million combined, changing hands in rooms filled with paddles, whispered bids, and people who will never have to think about money again in their lives. And somewhere out there, right now, the 11th most expensive car in history is sitting quietly in a private garage, completely unaware that its own record-breaking day is still coming.